Good evening, everybody. The time is 6:32 PM, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Mahoney. Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey.
Here.
Trustee Westcott.
Here.
Trustee Bristow. Trustee Cohen.
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
Trustee Tapey.
Here. Thank you. Next up on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion, please?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second. With a motion and a second, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is public comment. It's nice to see so many folks out in our audience this evening. I'm not sure how many of you were intending to speak either now during public comment or potentially later in the agenda. But I would like to make sure folks know that we don't respond during public comment. We're happy to listen to you, and you will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to speak during the public comment time. First up, we have Dallas Green. Dallas, if you would please come up to the podium. You'll need to press the button to unmute the microphone, and please state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dallas Green. I'm the CEO of Phoenix Fabricators. We're located in Avon, Indiana. Appreciate this opportunity to talk to you guys tonight. CEO of Phoenix Fabricators, we were the low responsive bidder for the elevated water storage tank project that you guys recently bid. Phoenix has been in business since 1986 and has completed well in excess of over 5,000 water towers around the United States, many of them right here in your great state of Colorado. As one of the premier elevated tank contractors in the United States, Phoenix is more than qualified to build your new, beautiful tank. When we saw this project advertised, we set out to ensure that we were best positioned to provide the town of Lockwood a low, responsive bid that would ensure the town's taxpayers receive the best price for their tank so that they can be proud of it for generations to come. At Phoenix, we believe that every tank is a monument that represents the citizens both now and long into the future. And we ensure that we uphold the integrity of the bid process as well as provide the taxpayers with the best price to build their tank. You can understand then why I'm here tonight. Phoenix approached this project with the honesty and integrity that you and your fellow citizens deserve and bid this project while respecting all requirements of the bid and the legal framework that is there to protect you from those who have an agenda in these processes. Over the years, across tens of thousands of bids, we've seen how selfish actors can lead unsuspecting taxpayers to pay far more than they need to in order to build their tanks. With millions of dollars on the line, even with strict bid requirements such as yours, people are tempted to manipulate the process for their own benefit. At Phoenix, we believe in the integrity of the legal systems that protect these bids and work to ensure that it is upheld during the process so as not to let unsuspecting citizens get taken advantage of. In your process, Phoenix submitted the lowest responsive bid. That means we fulfilled all requirements of the bid documents. However, these representatives that the town tasked with protecting the integrity of the process instead recommended to you to award the bid to a higher cost bidder that should have been deemed unresponsive as they did not fill out the bid documents completely, leaving out key information that opened your taxpayers to significant financial risks. Now, I can understand why, given these circumstances, you would feel inclined to take your staff's new recommendation to rebid the project. It takes a lot of courage and strength to acknowledge when something doesn't seem right and take a stand and do something about it. I commend your strength, and it speaks volumes to the values and ethics of this town staff and town council for recognizing when something is wrong and taking a stand. However, I'm before you tonight to urge you to reconsider rebidding the project, which only costs your taxpayers more time and money. And instead, have your staff write up the documentation for awarding the project to Phoenix, the true responsive low bidder, By rebidding this project, you are rewarding those involved in creating this situation with another opportunity to take your hard-earned tax dollars. You have in front of you a low responsive bid from Phoenix, an honest premier tank contractor that has built thousands of tanks around the country, many of which are within your state lines, that you are well within your legal rights to award to Phoenix. Now, if the project is rebid, I certainly hope that Phoenix is once again low bidder. However, if another tank contractor were to win this project, a dark cloud will always hang over that tank. If you do decide that rebidding the project will provide you the clean slate you so desire, I strongly urge you to ensure that the integrity of the bid is upheld from the beginning. Our competitors work to ensure that qualified companies are prevented from bidding projects by creating completely arbitrary and unscientifically based prerequisites that are nothing more than a form of antitrust, anti-competitive clauses dressed up as a way to protect your project. These arbitrary and unfounded prerequisites do nothing more than raise the price of your project only to the benefit of those companies, since they know they can ask for more money due to limited competition. I implore you to see these anti-competitive requirements as what they are, another way to steal your hard-earned tax dollars. We're honored by the opportunity to work for the town of Lockwood. I truly hope you award this project to Phoenix. We want to ensure that you get the best tank for the best price and feel confident when Phoenix directs your tank, you have upheld your fiduciary responsibility to your taxpayers that have entrusted you with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker this evening will be Bob Whirling. If you also would please come up, state your name and address. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Bob Whirling. I'm with Landmark Structures. I'm the senior business representative for Landmark Structures. We are the lowest responsible bidder for this project. And we ask you to consider our bid for this project. I point out as a point of reference that your neighboring community, the city of Brighton, bid a project, and we were the lowest responsive bidder on that project as well, a 2 million gallon tank in your neighboring community. And on that project, I reference the standards and the experience requirement for that, which required 10 tanks of equal or greater capacity in service for 10 years, which our competitors does not meet. I'm unfamiliar with the projects that they are referencing in the state of Colorado. I believe there might be one tank that they have built here in the great state of Colorado, where we have a number of tanks that we have referenced and provided in our documents for your bid. So with that, I wish that you would consider our bid for this project. We are prepared for the design and construction of this project, ready to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments tonight. Anybody else? Is there anybody on Zoom wishing to speak? One last call. If there's anybody that's joining us virtually that was hoping to speak in public comment tonight. All right, hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. For the benefit of our audience, the items that are listed on our consent agenda this evening include the payment approval report in the amount of $221,958.77, the minutes from the February 6th meeting, the minutes from the special meeting on February 12th, and Resolution 2024-15, authorizing the town administrator to execute a consent to the partial assignment and assumption agreement related to subdivision improvement and water dedication agreement, Blue Lake filing number 2, phase 2 and 3 improvements. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion and a second. May we have roll call, please?
Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
trustee White,
yes,
And the motion carries. Moving on to action items. Item A, public hearing on whether Southweld Annexation Number 2, as more particularly described in Resolution Number 2024-6, approved January 12th, 2024, meets applicable requirements of Section 30 of Article 2 of the Colorado Constitution and Colorado Revised Statutes, Chapter 31, 104, and CRS 31-12-105, and is eligible for annexation to the town of Loch Buoy. The time is now 6:43 PM, and I will open this public hearing and announce that it is continued to March 5th, 2024. Hang on a second. I need somebody to make a motion to continue it. Is there anybody willing to make a motion to continue this public hearing to March 5th, 2024 at 6:30 PM?
I move to continue the hearing to March 5th, 2024 at 6:30 PM.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue this hearing to March 5th. May we have roll call, please?
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
Yes,
trustee White,
yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes,
trustee Tapey,
Yes.
and the motion carries. Action item B is regarding the public hearing on whether Southweld Annexation Number 3, as more particularly described in Resolution Number 2024-7, approved January 12th, 2024, meets applicable requirements of Section 30 of Article 2 of the Colorado Constitution and Colorado Revised Statutes 31-12-104 and 31-12-105, and is eligible for annexation to the town of Loch Buoy. The time is now 6:44 PM, and I will open this public hearing and would also entertain a motion for continuance.
I move to continue the hearing until March 5th, 2024 at 6:30 PM.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue this hearing as well. Roll call, please.
trustee Tapey,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
trustee White,
yes,
trustee Westcott,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes. And the motion carries. Action item C, ordinance 2024-692, repealing and readopting Article 3 of Chapter 4 of the Loch Buoy Municipal Code governing municipal purchasing and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey. Ordinance 692, as presented to you tonight, is a matter necessary because we have provisions in our municipal code that govern how we purchase and procure both goods and services that don't necessarily jive 100% with the purchasing policy that was more recently legislatively adopted by this Board of Trustees. And actually, also from time to time, we engage in procurement of goods and services using federal funding where we have certain procurement and purchasing requirements pursuant to that federal funding's requirements. And so I am suggesting to you that we eliminate the provision in our municipal code that sets out the specifics for the processes and criteria for certain purchases and processes so that we can live with the purchasing policy that you just more recently adopted. And that purchasing policy, a copy of that is in your board packet tonight. And frankly, it's a lot more robust than what was in the code anyway. And so it's never a good idea to have the same subject addressed in two different provisions of governing law. And so that is why I suggest at this point that we repeal 692 and live with our purchasing policy. What this will do then is put into our code a reference to the purchasing policy and give you the flexibility to change that purchasing policy as time goes on and inflation happens and professionalism of staff changes and all kinds of things. So I'm open to any questions you might have.
Does anybody have questions to bring? See, everybody's shaking their heads. All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-692 and an ordinance repealing and readopting Article 3 of Chapter 4 of the Town of Lochbuie Municipal Code governing municipal purchasing and declaring an emergency.
Second.
With a motion and a second, may we have roll call, please?
Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
trustee Tapey,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
trustee White,
yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey.
Yes. And the motion carries. Action item D, the elevated water storage tank. Who is going to take it up first? Chris?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Staff recommends that the board reject all bids received for the elevated water storage tank construction and recommend that the board direct staff to rebid this project as soon as reasonably or responsibly as possible.
No, I don't have anything. The bid documents allow the town to make that decision to rebid it. And so that's a discretionary decision of the board.
Does anybody have any questions for staff or our town attorney? Being none,
I
would
do.
anyone like to make a motion? Oh, Jacqueline?
yes. I do have questions, and I don't know if we need to make time to discuss this later, or if now is the appropriate time to discuss them, but with both of the gentlemen earlier, I guess that spoke, and in prior meetings, I guess the question is, what I'm hearing is there's a claim that during the actual application process, that one of these other bidders did not fulfill the basic requirements to be considered a reasonable bidder. So I'd like to know exactly what that claim was. I don't know if we can get clarification from earlier, if anybody was taking notes. Or from the previous meeting, but it's the same claim that's being made. And so I would like to know if that's accurate or not, first of all.
I don't think we have a response to that. You're correct. There certainly have been claims made by at least two of the bidders in the last round of bidding. Because
Which-
issues have been raised and staff
So I'm not
has
comfortable
looked at that
saying
and at the
what's-
bids received, staff is making the recommendation that it believes it's in the town's best interest to just go ahead and rebid this project at this time.
Okay, well, I would like to say I'm not comfortable spending more money. I think as a board, we need to look into those allegations and get answers for those before we can actually decide to take one of the offers that have been made, put it out for rebid, really to make further discussion. I think it warrants more time and more detail on our part as a board and whole.
Anything else you wanted to ask, trustee White?
No, I would just be against moving forward at this time without getting some questions answered.
Thank you. Did anybody else have other questions? I have one. If we make the decision to move forward with rebidding, will JVA Consulting Engineers be continuing to collect the bids for us?
We are looking at having a more internal oversight over this next rebidding process to hopefully avoid some of the questions that have been raised.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion?
I guess I would motion to continue this for later for further discussion.
There's a motion to continue this later for further discussion. Is there a second to that motion? There is no second for that motion. Would anyone like to make a different motion?
I move to not award the elevated water storage tank construction project to any bidder in the current bid process with bids received by December 28th, 2023, and further move to direct staff to issue a new invitation for bid for the elevated water storage tank as soon as possible.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
trustee White,
No,
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next up on our agenda is discussion. Item 8A, fireworks in the town of Lock Bowie. Chief McCoy.
Oh, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. So yeah, exciting discussion about fireworks here. If you had a chance to review the packet and I've got all the documentation here from the town of Lock Bowie, the state statute, and then also a couple of neighboring communities ordinances and codes that cover this. And as you can see on this one that says Article 7 fireworks, that's the town of Lock Bowie's ordinance, which is the most restrictive ordinance I've seen for fireworks. It doesn't allow anything but sparklers basically and like little worms and smoke bombs. So the fountains and the things that you purchase at the roadside stand outside of town in Brighton or wherever, can't use them here. And we just changed our municipal code, and that's a $500 fine to use those in this town. So I guess we've got a couple other ordinances from couple of different neighboring places, and then we've got the state law. And the other two, the one from Brighton and the one from Fort Lupton, actually Fort Lupton's is the most streamlined one. It just basically refers to the Colorado Revised Statute, basically making whatever is legal in Colorado be legal in their city. So just wanted to bring that up as a discussion for you guys to talk about, to find out if that's kind of the direction you're wanting to go, or if you want to leave it the way that it currently sits.
And if I can just add on to that, I know we just redid chapter 10, and if you recall our conversation about that, we didn't want to change policy really when we were doing the redo of chapter 10. And so the reason that the code has these restrictive provisions is not because of the work that we just recently did. It's just always been like that. But what the differentiator is here now is we did raise the fine to $500. And so, you know, I think to the chief's point, like
Well-
a kid holding a sparkler potentially, you know, is subject to a $500 fine right now in the town of Lock Bowie. And
Yeah,
so,
so ultimately, if you use a ground flower or the little fountains that you put in your driveway and do that, that's $500 fine, and that's the same as if you bought a mortar up in Wyoming and you're shooting it in your backyard and it's going up and exploding everywhere. So I think that there needs to be some differentiation there a little bit of what's legal and what's illegal.
Thank you. Trustee Cohen?
I have questions. So I certainly appreciate and don't want us to be handing out $500 tickets for sparklers. However, my neighbors do both of those things you just described, and they don't just throw the ground flower out into the street, they throw it at people's homes. So my question would be, if we theoretically increase the risk, because I don't think we're necessarily stopping that activity now under our current ordinance. What does that buy us? Does that allow you guys, the PD, then to handle the bigger things that are?
Well, that will hopefully happen. I can tell you the fireworks tickets that we've written in the last couple of years, most of them are the family style fireworks that you buy at the stand in Brighton, and not the mortars, because they're a lot harder to catch. When we're on patrol, the guy lights a fountain in front of you on the street, you see it, it's right there. You can't miss that. But a mortar going up above you in the sky, if it came out of someone's backyard, we won't know whose yard that is unless we get a neighbor that calls us and says, hey, they're lighting these off back here. So I think that it would redirect us And then you just ignore the stuff that's going on the ground. People shouldn't be throwing those ground flowers. Right. But yeah, I can't tell you, I never did that.
I realize you guys can't control ultimately people's behavior, but I just want to understand what it buys us to.
Yeah, I think that maybe this is really restrictive. I think it goes back to the 70s when this was created. And it might be because of mobile homes and fire risk and those kind of things. I think that might be the thought process. And I agree with that. I think that you know, you get a fire there and you can have some trouble. So I agree with that and to be restrictive in that way. But like bottle rockets and those kind of things, those need to remain illegal. They are illegal in the state. Can't have them in the state. So those cause a lot of problems. Okay.
Trustee Westcott.
Since it's come up, and it was one of my questions is just the fire risk for it. I think a lot of our developments are surrounded by big open fields that are typically pretty dry in July. And so I don't know that this is going to make a big difference, but I am curious as to whether or not, and you're here tonight, if you'd be willing to speak to whether you think that that would increase fire risk.
Good evening, Battalion Chief Cody Peterson. To speak on that, yeah, everything obviously that's banned in the state of Colorado is banned for a reason. And to your point, you know, with the dryness in the fields and whatnot, that's what we're concerned about is the stuff that goes up in the air. What's sold on the side of the road, typically that's not of importance to us, just because of the fact that they are designed to stay on the ground. I can't speak to dumb kids like myself at the time, would throw that kind of stuff, right? So to Chief McCoy's point, though, allowing this, I think, allows for a bigger focus to help us in the long run with the other bigger stuff that is a much greater risk that impacts us as well. So I think that moving with this ordinance, I think, is acceptable from the fire department standpoint.
Thank you. Anything else? Trustee Tapey, anything from you?
This is kind of interesting to me. I was raised in the South. We never really had issues with firework displays or fireworks and I think we did everything where we were allowed to do everything. Since I've lived here, it seems like people pretty much do everything. So the ordinances are kind of interesting to me, or the policies or whatever. I haven't seen, I mean, we have in our neighborhood, we have people do the big fireworks and that just reverberate, that make our windows shake. And I guess what I'm understanding is if we were to call that in, then action would be taken on that.
Right. So those are things that are illegal in the entire state. They're not legal to do anywhere in this state. So that's, I guess, what we would like to focus on, instead of focusing on the smaller stuff. And you're right. The enforcement of this thing here is, you can see it on social media, and you can see the people's their attitude towards fireworks and what they can do on the 4th of July. And this is 4th of July, so we get to do what we want. And so, yeah, enforcement's pretty difficult with a small town like we have with small staff. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons why I'd like to concentrate more on the bigger stuff.
Trustee White?
No, I mean, just hearing what the police chief and the fire department have to say, I would move that we adopt the Colorado state laws on fireworks.
Is that a formal motion on your part then? Just
That
check.
is.
Yes? Okay, we have a
Yes.
motion to adopt what Colorado recommends in terms of fireworks is,
May I
Yes.
request trustee White, if you could amend that motion just to ask us to bring forward an ordinance that incorporates the Colorado state standards on what are permissible fireworks?
Okay, I move that we adopt the Colorado state standards on fireworks. Oh, that was too specific.
No, I'm just, you're not on the fly legislating right now, I think is, I guess what I'm asking is if you could just, if you're open to providing us direction to actually just bring back an ordinance that incorporates those standards, those Colorado state standards into the ordinance. And then we would look for a motion to adopt that ordinance.
so do we really need a motion tonight? It seems like our consensus would be to take the chief's
I mean,
recommendation.
you can have a motion to direct us to bring an
direct you
ordinance
to
back. I
bring an
think that's
ordinance
fine.
back?
It's just, you can't, well, you shouldn't on the fly say, we're going to adopt these standards and have them try to be effective as though an ordinance. You need to adopt an ordinance in order to codify it so we can enforce it.
Do you accept Ms. Duran's friendly suggestion to amending your motion? And I can restate it.
Yes, please. I just don't know how to do so. Thank you.
Yes. So Ms. Trustee White's motion is to direct staff to bring before the board at a near future meeting an ordinance that brings into account for us what Colorado recommends as standards regarding fireworks for our consideration and adoption. Is there a second? With a motion and a second, may we have roll call, please?
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
And the motion carries. What a very appropriate time to thank our fire departments for being here this evening, both for Hudson and Lock Bowie. Would either of you like to say anything else while you're here? You're welcome to, but otherwise, hi and thanks for being here. Moving on to staff reports, Finance Treasurer, Ms. Rademacher.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. So before you, you have the always long-awaited quarterly report, drum roll, please. So so I took a deep dive, looking basically at how we ended the year of 2023. And by the time we get to the fourth quarter, budget's usually out the window and you're more looking at forecast. What you budgeted a year ago it's basically your plan, but your forecast is what you try to live by and because your forecast is what builds the beginning for your next year's budget. So I always take forecasts very seriously and try to get as close as possible. Not that that's because that's the type of person I am, but I have to try to be right. Not a good job to be in when I have to try to be right, but we did get pretty close. So I do think the forecast was pretty accurate. So that means our beginning balances should be pretty accurate in all funds. But for the delays in the Greenway Trail, that's the one thing that really threw me off base there. If we had only gotten a little further on that project, I would have been really close to forecast. So, some of those little hiccups happened and we just carry on with that one. So economically, we realized last week was kind of a bad week. Inflation came in higher than what they had expected. Stock market took a tumble, but then again, it was up in a couple next two days later, it was back up to where it was nearly. So, we're going to be on a roller coaster until, the Fed starts cutting rates, which now I've heard maybe in June, if you read some things, maybe June will be the first time they can start cutting rates. But until then, it's going to be kind of dicey. They're going to wait to see what reports come out in that nature. So, and what goes with the Feds usually goes with the state of Colorado. But for that, our inflation here seems to be a little higher than national average because of our high housing costs. That's the thing that's usually driving inflation in the state of Colorado right now.
So unemployment seems fine. Inflation hopefully will come down a little more. So everything, we'll have to just play the waiting game. I did do a recap of the sales tax and the property tax for last year. Sales tax came a little higher than what I had forecast. So that was good. I did do a new figure, a new drawing or new chart, which shows that the net migration into our county in particular for the state of Colorado is going to be higher. That's what they're predicting at the state. So more people moving into Weld and Adams counties, which should keep us going on the home sales. So that bodes well. Hopefully then that will spur more commercial activity, which is what, of course, we need as well. So then I just basically did a summary of all of the other funds, the water and the sewer. And as I said, they all came in pretty close to that forecast. The audit will be starting March the 4th. They'll be here in person 2 days that week. And if they don't get finished up, they'll be in the following week as well. So that's going to be, by the time the next board meeting happens, the audit's going to be underway in person. So one of the other things I did want to mention is I included a quarterly type of report in there that I asked JP Morgan Chase Securities to prepare for you all, which in keeping with the investment policy, we'll try to give you a little measure on where the funds of the town are invested, what types of securities. So it's a quarterly report that'll be in each quarter, obviously. And if there's anything else that you'd like to see or a different type of report, let me know. But when I reached out to JP Morgan Chase, they were like, yeah, we provide that for all of our clients. So it's something that they are used to doing and they will provide for us. Other than that, we got the December unaudited statements in front of you and the January statements in front of you. As we all know, we are spending a little more than we had budgeted on a few line items this year. So I, am approaching it with some intrepidation and caution because, I don't like to spend money. I like to watch money and make money grow, but spending money is like out of my wheelhouse. So anyway, I just want to, I'll keep you abreast on how things are going and check those financials closely. And if you have any questions, just let me know. So with that, if you have any other questions, I can answer them at this time.
Does anybody have questions? I just want to thank you for your diligence and frugality and for being meticulous and always very well organized. Thank you so much. All right, next report is the police report. Chief McCoy.
All right, so I don't really have anything to add much to my report other than code enforcement. So it's kind of in the same sentence over and over about we're working on abandoned vehicles and we're doing these things, and that's real, and it's still a struggle. It seems like we, for instance, we just recently had a resident in the Farms decide they're going to bring a modular office building and park it in their yard. So we're attacking that, trying to get them to. It can't be here, but now that it's here, we have to. Somehow we have to get it out of there. So know when you see things like that we are usually on top of it, but it's difficult to make people move fast as you want them to sometimes. So working on that. Mayor Mahoney had mentioned something about the semi parking on the frontage road out here, right at County Road 37. You guys have probably noticed a semi parking there, maybe a couple of different times, a couple of different semis. It's in the town, but that shoulder belongs to CDOT, and I've reached out to them to have them place signs up there so that they're not parking their semis on the shoulder. It's really not good for the shoulder. They don't want them there, and it really is sort of an eyesore. I think it's people that live here and they park their when they come back in from their road trip, they park their semi there and then walk on home. I appreciate that that's simple for them to do that, but that's not where they should be parking. So any questions? I'm open.
Trustee Westcott.
So you mentioned in your report that there were 100 more incidents in January from December, and looking at your neat little graph here for the last 4 months, it looks like that's a pretty significant rise from the last 3 or 4 months. So I'm just curious if you have any ideas as to what spurred that.
The fact that we have 3 officers that were in field training. So we're making them be active and aggressive and trying to, so a lot of it you'll also see in here, a lot of it's officer initiated, which means a lot of the increase is officer initiated. So that's what it's for, because while you're training them, you have to encourage a little more traffic stops, encourage more things so that they can experience that and we can train them in it. And I think that's probably the most of it.
You wouldn't say we're having a crime wave.
No, I don't think so. No.
Thank you.
And and I would only say that if I thought violent crime was going up, because the little kind of stuff that we deal with all the time, even if that's more than usual, it's not really crime wave worthy.
Anybody else with questions for Chief? Go ahead.
With I guess it was a bank robbery or something yesterday or the day before. I don't know the outcome. I don't know all of the specifics about it, but I do know I have seen more patrol cars out, and it's really cool. It's a good feeling to see our Loch Buoy
Well,
enforcing.
good. Yeah, we want them to get out there. That's part of the main function, is to have a presence and be seen. So that's something we're constantly striving to get them out there more.
Anything else for Chief? Okay. Water and wastewater, Mr. Ramey.
My button. Good evening. Always remember, I gotta step back. Wastewater plant, those are up, from last year. The loadings is about the same. I did modify the report a little bit, like we always will, like on the bottom, the dewatering information. We get billed by wet tons, but the way EPA looks at it is how many dry tons do you do, right? So I figured, well, start putting in dry tons, and I kind of give you an idea of how dry we're getting the sludge, which is, it's a battle all the time, right? Temperature changes the how much polymer you have to use. It changes how well the sludge gives up the water. So figured I'd just give that information to you, kind of let us know how much dry pounds of glue you do. So January was busy. We have clarification equipment at the wastewater plant. And that's where the water becomes clean, right? You've got the chocolate milk, and then it goes into these round tanks called clarifiers. And we've always just used one, right? But we got to the point where, we needed to put on the other one. And we would rotate them every other year, right? Just so that you'd have one running. Well, we were chasing down, they don't use a mechanical means to remove the sludge out of the clarifier. It uses a siphon effect, and then it goes into a pit that there is a pump. And we were chasing a leak for probably 40 days. And every time, you thought that you had the leak found, then you'd fill the tank back up, and then you'd find out it wouldn't work, and then you have to take it back down. So needless to say, we went through a lot of gasoline and a lot of poo to get, but we did get it all figured out. We got it repaired, and so now both of them are working. We still got a little bit of tuning we got to do on it, because what'll happen is all of a sudden one will go lower than the other based on its siphon. So we got to figure out how to keep those a little more equal. Other than that, the wastewater, we did have a few more things. We had to work on the blowers, just, equipment that's old. It's original equipment. Water, as far as the water plant goes, you can see the flow went down almost 1 million gallons for the month. I mean, that sounds like a lot, but that's really only 30,000 gallons a day. That's not that much when you add it all up, but and it could be just nothing more than we didn't have any construction going on that was using water. Other than that, the HOC agreement for the chlorine unit that we spent $4,000. They've already spent $7,000 to fix it. So we're 3,000 ahead on a contract. How often do you get to hear that? If anybody's got any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you. Anybody with questions? All right, thanks for keeping it clean. Public Works, Mr. Larman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Board, good evening. You have my report. I will touch on a few important topics and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. We finally were able to source the proper equipment for the demolition of the structures at the skate park. We were not anticipating those being solid chunks of concrete, so we had to break out the big guns. We had a 30,000-pound excavator and a hammer out there to get that taken care of, but that's all done. We have a few surface patches to do on that surface on the old skate park, and then we'll open it back up for people to use their roller blades and roller skates. I've had several calls about inquiring about when that's gonna happen, so that's kind of the plan. The Greenways Trail is well underway. They're making just humongous progress on that. We did have a gas line that was potholed during design, but we found a clearance conflict in between the potholes during construction. So there was some minor redesign, which resulted in some additional earthwork, concrete, and handrails. Anticipate seeing a change order on that soon. Wayne mentioned the wastewater treatment plant. As you all know, we're working on the preliminary design of the expansion. And we've kind of hit a milestone in that process where we've finalized the absorption rates. And what those are is where we look at Loch Buoy's projections, Brighton's projections for our service area in Brighton, and look at all of the things that we're anticipate coming online within the design period, which is 20 years. So initially, there was a 2 million gallon expansion contemplated. All the data is leading towards we're going to need to double that to a 4 million gallon expansion per day, giving us a total capacity of about 6 million gallons per day at the treatment plant. And then last, but certainly not least, I have a punch walk scheduled for next week for the County Road 2 Northside Phase 1 widening. So that doesn't mean that it's going to be open to traffic just then, but that's our first opportunity to go out there with the contractor and the plan set and identify all the things that are done that need to be repaired and still need to be completed before we can issue acceptance on that project. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Mr. Larman? Trustee Westcott.
So this morning on my drive to work, it was really fun because the 2 lanes were open heading west, and that was cool, or east, it was east, because they were closed before. Anyway, but for your punch list, I'm going to add something for you. So when I was headed east, there was a sign that said that the speed limit was 35 miles an hour. But then when I was coming home, there was a sign that said it was 25 miles an hour, and then literally probably less than, I don't know, I'm not really good at measurement, but it wasn't very far. It said it was 45 miles an hour. So I'm very confused as to what the actual speed limit is supposed to be along that stretch. I don't know if those signs are old signs or they're new signs, but it seems pretty inconsistent.
So I'm going to be out there tomorrow looking and making sure that they're following the approved MHT manual or method for handling traffic for that project, because we got a few calls today about different things. So I'll be out there and possibly our traffic engineer will be out there as well, but we're looking into it.
All right, seeing no other questions, community development, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the board. You have a copy of my report. Just a few quick highlights for you tonight. First, just a quick reminder that we're holding our open house this Thursday for the town's comp plan update effort. This is a goal. The goal here is to take more in-person input from residents and incorporate that input into a draft plan that will be out for everybody's review over the next, 4 to 6 weeks. And so please consider coming if you're available. Also wanted to let the board know that now that the remaining public hearings for the Quip Trip project have been completed, developers are working hard to get all those permits they need for construction. So we're excited about trying to help them get through that process quickly so we can start to see some activity on that site over the next couple of months. Just a quick similar note on Starbucks. They're on a very similar schedule. They're working on their construction permits as we speak with a similar goal of getting started this spring. And then finally, the next step in the Southweld annexation process, as we talked about last week, is to begin work with the developer on a zoning plan and annexation agreement for the board to consider hopefully sometime in June. And so we're going to begin meeting with those developers to discuss those items as early as this week.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Mr. Kennedy tonight? All right, seeing none. Thanks again. Town Clerk. Bowen.
Good evening. I don't have a lot to add. I did check the CML website today and it doesn't look like registration or anything is open. But I'll probably reach out to you all again once it is and just. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Anybody with questions? All right. Human Resources. Mrs. Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Board of Trustees. I don't have much to add to my report that you have before you. I would like to let Trustee Westcott know that 2 meetings ago, she requested to have the trash pickup dates added to the website town calendar, and we have done that. We hyperlink them, so if anybody clicks, it will take them to the web page where subdivisions are part of the green and the blue color coding that they have. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody with questions related to human resources tonight? All right, very good. Town Administrator, Mr. Yoker.
Thank you. I don't have too much to add from my report. The annual budget report is in the process of being finalized, and that should be hopefully out by the end of this month. Our projects and priorities board work session is tentatively scheduled for March 5th. I know everyone wants to participate, so just trying to make sure everybody will be around. So I'll be checking in as we get closer to that. As Denise mentioned, we have gone over on some line items. We always try and keep you apprised of that in advance. As you know, there's been some extraordinary projects, events, opportunities that have happened. But it's a real credit to the town and the town's policy of creating good reserves. So we're okay from a big picture standpoint, but I know it's sometimes challenging with Denise when we go over some line items. But overall we're okay, and we always like to ask permission instead of forgiveness. So we'll continue with that. One item to mention on the website, and Jasmine, reminded me, we've started doing a after meeting kind of action update. It's unofficial, it's not the minutes. Because what happens is you have your meeting, and then if folks can't make the meeting, then what happened to any of this stuff if they don't want to watch or can't tune in? So we just do a very quick, these things passed, for example, tonight, open and continue, what was passed. So that way, just a very quick, 2 minutes, you can find out what happened at the meeting. So started to add that just to keep everybody informed. And that's all I have unless there are any questions.
Does anybody have questions? Trustee Cohen?
I have a question, just a comment, and that is that I love the recap. So thank you for doing that across my Facebook feed. And I think it adds to the transparency in government, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine. So thank you for doing that.
Seeing nothing else, just be mindful that code enforcement does not permit modular office buildings when you're looking at temporary facilities for operations, okay?
Check.
Would be one less area my dogs tear up, so I'm okay with that. Mayor and trustee comments. Trustee White, any comments this evening?
I do not, thank you.
Trustee Tapey?
No comments. Thank you.
Trustee Cohen?
I have comments. So CML, we just had the policy committee meeting. I don't have a lot to report there. It wasn't that exciting. There is a meeting coming up tomorrow. It's sort of a special meeting for CML to update us on upcoming land use stuff that's going on again. So I'll likely have an update in the meeting.
Thank you. Trustee Westcott?
I don't have anything except to say thank you, obviously, to town staff for the great job that you're doing. Thanks.
I would also say thank you as well. And I would just like, I guess, for my comments to clarify, Thursday night is an open house. So again, it's not a structured time where we're expecting people to be here for the whole 2-hour block. Am I correct? So if I have another meeting obligation, it would be okay for me to come for a little bit and then go to my other meeting obligation. Yes? Awesome. Thanks for the nods. I appreciate that. Go right ahead. I think I've earned it having to run all these meetings lately. We've missed the mayor. All right, next on our agenda is executive session with town legal counsel to discuss ongoing litigation related to annexation. I believe people have a script. If anyone would like to make a motion, please.
I move to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing ongoing litigation related to annexation with town legal counsel under CRS 24-6-4024B.
With a motion and a second, may we have roll call, please?
Trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
trustee Tapey.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.